Joining me now, Republican Congressman Cliff Stearns of Florida, chairman of the House Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigation, who has led the charge against wasteful government spending, particularly with investigations into the Solyndra mess. Congressman, welcome back to the show. I want to continue with this theme of the president speaking to the unions today, get you to react to part of what he said. Here's the president.
You know why I knew this rescue would succeed? You want to know? It wasn't because of anything the government did. It wasn't just because of anything management did. It was because I believed in you. I placed my bet on the American worker. And I'll make that bet any day of the week. And now, 3 years later, that bet is paying off.
All right, but is it paying off? You know, they still owe us $23 billion. Come on. At the end of the day, doesn't the taxpayer come first? Isn't that who the president should be answering to?
Let's hope so, Jerry. You know, a Chapter 7 is where you liquidate a corporation. A Chapter 11 is where you reorganize. I don't think the president understands the difference. When you reorganize under Chapter 11, all the bondholders have rights. All the creditors have rights. And everybody goes through a systematic approach. That didn't happen this way, Jerry. They cut out all the bondholders. They paid nothing to the creditors. They gave the money of $80 billion to General Motors, and then they also did away with a lot of franchisees, just unceremoniously took away the franchise for people that had it for 30 or 40 years, and they did it for political reasons. They brought in the unions and gave them a special compensation of ownership of stock, and that diluted the stock of the stockholders. Jerry, it's very wrong what was done, and it's unconstitutional.
Well, there were, you know, as you're saying, there were winners and there were losers. You know, the unions won. The unions are an important political voting bloc. And now in ads, Obama is making fun of Mitt Romney for saying he didn't like what happened. Tell me what you think about Mitt Romney's position on this, because he basically says we never should have bailed out these unions and the big automakers.
Mr. Romney, Governor Romney and Senator Santorum are correct. We should have gone through a normal reorganization of Chapter 11. That's what it's set up for corporations. That's the way we should do it. That's the way the judiciary and the bankruptcy laws are set up. You should not go in and make these favorite winners and losers. And then, of course, they still owe the money. But think about this, Jerry. They got $80 billion at almost practically zero interest rates with no payback required except if they made it. And you can't get a loan like that in business. I mean, please, if you're going to socialize this country and give taxpayers money to every corporation that's in trouble, then we're going to be in very bad shape because we won't have free enterprise anymore. It's really outrageous what the president just said.
Well, I got to tell you, that's not the only shortcut that the administration wants to take. There's also the strategic oil reserves. Now, a number of Democrats saying it's time to open those up, open the gates to the strategic oil reserve, including Ed Markey, Peter Welch, Rosa DeLauro. I mean, you know, we've done this a number of times, 91, 2005, 2011. This is not the time to open those gates. You're only supposed to use it at times of a national crisis.
Exactly. If we had a Katrina or we had a desert storm, something like that. But, of course, he did it with Libya. And he took the strategic petroleum reserves and used some of it for the Libya crisis. But shortly after he did it, the prices went up again, so it didn't make any difference. And I think the president is very wise to react so quickly for political reasons when he really should think in terms of strategic. Is this a national emergency? I don't think it is.
Well, you know, I think at the end of the day, we are in full campaign mode. It's not just the Republicans who are in Michigan tonight. It's also the president, obviously, who is campaigning like heck. Let's talk a little bit about what he did recently with his pipeline that Canada's been proposing. He finally agreed to a piece of it. What is that about? That sounds to me like he's trying to square the circle here.
Well, I think the Canadians really called his hand because they can go from Oklahoma to Houston and get permits and start building it without his decision. So in a way, they called his bluff and say, we're starting the process. And I have to admit, I am just pleased that the Canadian corporation in Alberta decided to do that, because if the president loses, of course, we'll have the pipeline. If he wins, I think there's going to be so much pressure, he's going to force to continue the permitting across up to Nebraska and the Dakotas all the way up to Canada, because we need that oil to refine and bring the cost of oil down. That's the kind of things that will bring the cost of oil down.
Well, the national average now at $3.72 a gallon. A lot of people say that $4 is the tipping point. When the national average hits that Katie bar the door, Americans are going to start acting differently. They're going to stop driving. They're going to carpool. Retail sales will go down. Do you think that this could become the issue of the election? And what do you see for Americans out there who are struggling with this?
Well, Jerry, I have to tell you, I'm a little biased because I've seen all this, shall we say, loan guarantees like Solyndra and others, and I see this push by the administrations to get rid of fossil fuels. If you get rid of fossil fuels, then what you end up with is higher gasoline prices, whether it's a Keystone pipe or whether it's the solar panels or wind panels or all these things the president's pushing. It's making it more difficult to get the fossil fuel across and get gasoline for our consumers. So in the end, his whole agenda in dealing with green energy has created a bottleneck so that fossil fuels, in a sense, cannot be incentivized to get people to drill and to produce and refine the oil so we can get it to the pump and bring the cost down.
But you're not saying that, say, nat gas needs incentivizing, are you? Because there's so much profit in that business right now, they don't need any help. You're not saying give those folks money, are you?
No, I'm not saying giving any money, but continue to drill for oil. Continue to the Keystone Pipeline. Allow us to do fracking to get gas in the Midwest, and continue to use coal in our utility. In other words, use the resources we have so that, one, we're energy independent, two, that we're exporters, and then three, the cost of gasoline at the pump will come down. It's just that simple.
Come down and give American families a break. This has been a long recession. People are still struggling. Congressman Stearns, thanks for coming on tonight. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jerry.